guys, inflation is general and sustained increase in price level. So there are two things that we need to understand. General basically means it happens for a lot many goods, not few but many. General means many and not few, and sustain means for a long time. So if the prices are rising for many goods, and also if prices are rising continuously, we say this is what we call inflation, right? And before we talk about why inflation happened and what are the implications of I want to talk about something called real versus nominal measurements. We discussed this in the chapter before. Real means it is adjusted for uh, price level, and nominal for, or adjusted for prices. Nominal means uh, not adjusted. In other words, real means constant prices, while nominal means current prices. Okay, so what do we mean by constant versus current prices? So guys, um, a quick sort of thing to understand would be why does real matter? So for example, guys, if I look at our wage or anyone's wage, let's say the wage by an employer uh, is increasing by 10%, right? At the same time, if I tell you guys this, that inflation, overall price level in an economy is going up by, let's say, 12%. Are you all with me? So your wage is rising by 10% on an annual basis, but the prices in general for a lot of goods are rising by 12%. Are you better off with this 10% increase of wage rate or not? No. Why? Because when you subtract 10% with 12% inflation, your real wage is actually increasing by 2%, negative 2%, which means it's falling by 2%. So nominal wage has to be adjusted for inflation to get real wage. And real wage is a true indicator of are we doing better off or worse off. Similarly, I'll give you another example. Let's say I give a loan to somebody, right? At So the loan rate is, interest rate is, R for interest rate is 15%. Okay. So if this guy's interest rate is 15%, and let's say the inflation is 12%. Now, if you ask me how much is this guy's real interest rate, the answer will be 3%, because I want to subtract inflation rate to find out 3%. So in reality, if I've given him a loan of 100, he will at the end of the year, he's going to give me 115. But this 115 has a purchasing power of 103. Do you guys get that? Because ultimately, if this guy has actually been affected by 12% inflation, and if this was not 12%, guys, if this rate was like 17%, for example, right, or for example 18%, then this guy would have a minus 3% as the real interest rate. So the moral of the story that I'm saying is that the reason why we care about inflation is because inflation helps us understand the real value of things, right? If my employer is going to say, hey, Ali, congratulations, your wage has gone up by 10%, I shouldn't be happy, because if the inflation is 12%, I'm going to be worse off than last year. So if you had 100 rupees, guys, although you will get 110 at the end of the year, because your wage has gone up, but the purchasing of 1110 is actually going to be 98, because minus 2% would mean you are worse off. You get it? So in other words, you will be worse off in this situation rather than better off. Make sense? Any questions? Are we good? So what we say, guys, is measurement made using prices that are current at the time of transaction takes place are known as measurement of nominal value. If you look at current prices, you look at nominal values. But when the prices are rising, these nominal measurements are always overstate the extent to which an economic variable is growing. Like, why is this overstatement? Because although my nominal wage is going by 10%, because prices are rising by 12%, मेरी real wage actually गिर रही है, बढ़ नहीं रही. या मैं 15%, if I look at 15%, I will be very happy. But in reality, if the inflation rate is 12%, then I'm actually worse off. I'm actually only better off by 3%. So I shouldn't be looking at 15% as my um, interest rate, but actually real interest rate of 3% is what I want to look at. And if it's 18%, then I'm actually worse off, because then I will have minus 3%. Got it? So in order to deflate the values of like measurements, we may need to use um, rate of inflation. Why do we need to deflate? Anyone? Why do we need to deflate? People here. Why do we need to lower the value? Louder. No. Why do we need to subtract? Why am I subtracting inflation from this to get real? To know our purchasing power. To if this guy's purchasing power isn't 10%, it's actually falling by 2%. So this is an important measure, because ultimately whether you're worse off or better off depends on whether your purchasing power is going up or not. And inflation affects the purchasing power. So to analyze performance, economists will be more interested in real values, that is the quantities produced after removing the effect of price changes, which is what we're doing. One way in which these real measures can be obtained is by taking the volume produced in each year and valuing these quantities at prices that prevail in some base year. So what do we mean by this? Remember, हमने एक example की थी. We did an example where we said that keeping prices constant, what is the value now? So we need to keep prices constant. So for example, guys, for example, if the price of a good is $2, so this is year one, and the next year the price is $4, and let's say the quantity is sort of 100 units, the value of our GDP, for example, would be $200. If the next day the quantity is still 100, the value will become 400. But this is what we call the nominal value. If you ask for the real value, which is basically keeping prices constant, you will get basically real value of $2 times the quantity, which is 100, which means you're still at $200. Real value only goes up when the quantity goes up, while the nominal value can go up because of any change. So nominal values are misleading, but real values are not misleading, because in real value we keep prices constant. So nominal value is what's called prices, current prices, versus nominal versus real is what we call constant prices. We did this kind of example last time as well when we were doing. Make sense, guys? And that's why sometimes removing the rate of inflation is like an important thing to understand the well-being of an economy, because that is basically a measurement of purchasing power. Yeah, makes sense. And this is what we call just to write that, this is what we call our nominal value. Make sense? Are we going to move on? Any questions, guys? Yeah. Okay, guys, let's move on to uh, how do we measure inflation. And I want to sort of make you guys go through an example here. When you look at measuring inflation, basically what we do is um, we're looking at prices for the whole economy. Okay. No SIE. What do you mean by SIE, Wasif? Oh, no, sir. Sorry. How do you measure? How do we measure inflation? So, guys, when you look at figuring out sort of inflation or general price level, we say general price level tells us the cost of living at any point in time. So there are methods that go about it. So whenever I'm looking at inflation, I'm looking at year on year or year by year sort of increase in prices. And remember, when we're trying to calculate inflation, we're trying to sort of measure inflation for the whole economy. So the first step we go about, if I could sort of write that, the first step of measuring inflation is we conduct a survey, which helps us basically to find out two things, which helps us to find out a the basket of goods. Basically, I'm going to talk about this in 1 minute. And B, the relative importance of each good, which is what we call weights. So, guys, what I do is basically I conduct a survey from a lot of people all around the country, and I want to find out two things. What are they spending on, which is basket of goods? Why? Because I can't really choose all the goods in the country, right? I only need to choose some 500 plus goods, okay? I can't choose like 100,000 or 200,000 goods, but I only want to choose those goods which are really important. So I conduct a survey to find out what people are spending on, which is basket of goods, and secondly, how much are they spending on it, so that I can assign some weights to it. For example, oil, if people are spending 20% of their income on oil, I'm going to give it 20% weight. If people are spending like 30% on food, I'm going to give them that 30% weight. So these two things I can do that uh, by conducting a survey. And I'm trying to conduct a survey with a lot of people so that it becomes a thorough survey, number one. Number two, once I conducted a survey, and by the way, for this, I need to do sampling because there is a whole population, right? So I'm going to do some sampling where I'm going to sort of find out your prices. I'm sorry, your goods. So I'm going to conduct a survey from various villages, various rural areas, various cities, and so on and so forth. Second step, guys, is to find prices in a base year. So let's say 2021 becomes my base year. So I find prices in a base year by visiting all the major as well as uh, non-major kind of retail stores and find out the prices of the basket of goods so that I have base year prices. Okay. And then third step is find prices in the next year and calculate the rate of inflation. Okay, and we do this through what we call indexing. Okay, I want to explain that process of indexing in 1 minute of how that indexing happened. But once you guys are done copying this, and let me know, because then we can talk about the process of indexing. Okay, so guys, what is indexing? Indexing is, have you heard about index, stock exchange index? Yeah, they say your stock exchange index is going up or going down. So what is index basically? And in a stock exchange, by the way, they also do the same thing. There are many stocks in Karachi Stock Exchange, right? What they've done is that they have taken a basket of stocks. Some I don't know, well, how much is our basket for Karachi? KSC 100 indexes. I've heard about that. KSC 100 indexes, 100 companies. They track the prices of those 100 companies, and so they have created a basket, and they've given them a value of 100 in a base year. Every year they look at how those 100 shares are moving, and if those 100 shares are very representative of the market as well. There might be a lot of companies listed, but those 100 companies are very representative of how the market is doing. Okay, so here also, let's say, guys, let's do an exercise. I want you guys to look at this. So here also, what we do is we do it through what we call consumer price index. Okay, so in a consumer price index, let's say we have 3 items. I'm going to make a table. So I have food, I have clothing. What's the table in my example? Food, fuel, and clothing. In fact, let's move to next page and see the table. Okay, let's copy this table, guys. So we have food, fuel, and housing. 3 items. We've given a simple example of 3 goods rather than many. Okay, and let's say base year price for all the 3 goods are these. Okay, so base year price for food is $2, base year price for fuel is $3, and base year price for housing is $5. Make sense? Then what we do is we give these goods the price of we give these goods a index of 100. So all these goods are represented with the value 100. And there's a reason why I do that. Let's say now I've represented $2 with 100, $3 with 100, and $5 with 100 as well. And then also find out that a typical consumer is spending 60% on food, 30% on fuel, and 10% on housing. So when I conduct a survey, I get 2 things. Number one, what people are spending on, and number two, how much weight, which means how much are they spending on it. Okay, then I get my base year prices, and then I also get my prices for the next year. Okay, what's my price for food next year? 2.5. So first step number one in this context is how do you calculate inflation? Number one, let's find out the percentage change in prices for all the goods. Can we do that? Can somebody tell me what's the percentage change of food? Sorry? 25%. What about fuel? 3.25 minus 3 divided by 3 is? Anyone? People with calculator, what is 3.25 minus 3 over 3? Come on, quickly. Online, Wasif. Sorry? So 8.3%. And housing? 0.1, which is what percent? 10%. So I want to know in 10%. Okay. Once you know this, guys, now if the value was 100, right, in the base year, the next year value will become 125. Are you all with me? For food. So next year, so let me write this: index in year one will be 125. And what about fuel? What will be the value of fuel? Something was 100, it went up by 25%, became 125. Something was 100, it went up by 8.3%. Exactly, 108.3. Good job, Hussein. 108.3 and 110. Now, why did I do indexing, guys? Can you see the big advantage happening here? अगर मैं आपको बोलूं कोई चीज any good is now at an index of 125 without even knowing the price, can I say it has gone up by 25%? Without knowing the price of fuel, I notice it's gone up by 8.3%. So this data is no longer needed. I have made all my goods in the same scale. The prices might be different. What we care about is percentage change, and everything is now balanced to this one. So indexing allow us to basically represent everything in terms of how much they have risen. And so despite different prices, now when I look at indexes, I I don't need to know the price was $5. I know all I know is that food. All I know is that housing has gone to 110. Got it? So this is the big advantage of using indexing. Now, if I ask you guys, what's the cumulative percentage change that is happening? And the answer is next step would be number 2, multiply the index with the weight. Why do we do that? Now, guys, if you add 60 plus 30 plus 10, what's the total? 100. So this means I'm representing my expenditure in terms of weight. Everything is coming up to 100%. So food index was 125 times what's the weight? 60%. I'm going to write 0.6. Okay. Fuel is 108.3 times weight is 0.3. Similarly, housing, it's 110 times 0.1. Okay, so can you guys tell me the total? What's the total now? 125 times 0.6 is 75%. Yeah. I write 75 because we're expressing everything in index. 108.03 is 32.4, and 110 times 0.1 49. Okay, and 110 times 0.1 11. Can you do the total for me? 118.49. Now, guys, can you guys, if I ask you guys, what is the rate of inflation? Who said that? 18.49%. Good job. So rate of inflation is basically going to be 18 or 118.49 minus 100 or 18.49%. And by the way, has the cost of living gone up in this country? Has महंगाई बढ़ गई? Has the cost of living gone up? Yes. By how much? By 18.49%. So index is, what did 118.49? 118.49 is representing the index value. The index has gone up to 118.49. So guys, few things to remember. Number one, different goods were of different prices. So I use indexing to make them all come to the same scale. So indexing is scaling, and weights is basically giving us the relative importance. Now, if food is 60%, can I have 1 minute of attention? This is an important point to understand. If food is 60% of consumers' expenditure, if it becomes expensive, it's going to have a 75% impact on us, because although it's 60%, but it was going up by much more, and that's why overall inflation made this contribution 75. So by multiplying your prices or indexes, current indexes with the relative, with the weights, tell us the relative importance of each good in your expenditure. Let's say this is only 10%. Let's say if this was not 110 but 140 or 150. Even if that was the case, 150 times 0.1 would be 15. Do you guys get that? So the good, because which has a very low expenditure, may not be contributing too much to inflation because you not really have too much importance of that good in your weight. Why do we assign weight? Because that will tell us the relative importance. If all the three goods were equally important, what weight would you assign? If all the three goods were equally important, what weight would you assign? 33.3%. 1/3, right? You guys get that? Which would mean everything would have an equal kind of an impact on inflation. Got it? So this is how we find out the rate of inflation. Now, एक और exercise, one more thing that I want to do before we sort of wrap it up. Let's say next year, so first year the index, so base year your index was 100. Year 1 May, your index is 118.49. And let's say year 2 May, let's say it's the second year, I say the index is 120. If I ask you guys, find out the rate of inflation for this for year 2, how will you find that out? What's the rate of inflation for year 2? It's not 20%. If I say as compared to base year, it's 20%. But this year, I'm going to say the rate of inflation will be 1.5. It's going to be 120 minus 118.49 divided by 118.49 times 100. Now tell me. $1.27%. Is the rate of inflation going down? Yes. Which means prices are rising, but slowly as compared to last year. Isn't that true? Why am I saying prices are still rising? Because the rate of inflation is positive, but slowing down. So prices are increasing at a decreasing rate. Rate of inflation tell us what rate. Initially, prices are rising at an increasing rate, and then prices are rising at a decreasing rate. Make sense? If I say, guys, the year 3, the rate of inflation becomes 115. Now, what's the rate of inflation? What's the rate of inflation? This is year 2. What about the rate of inflation? Sorry, just 1 minute. Inflation in year 3. And what are you saying? Sorry, I forgot your name. Rayan. 115 minus 120 over 120. Is that what you did? What did you get? Minus 4.16. What is Rayan? What does that represent? The prices are going down. Rate of inflation being negative means prices are actually going down. We call this negative rate of inflation is called deflation. Remember this? Guys, this is called deflation. Okay? When the rate of inflation is negative, we call it deflation. And what do we call when the rate of inflation is slowing down? We call it disinflation. So disinflation is when the prices are rising at a slower rate, and deflation is when the prices are actually falling. Percentage change between year 3 and year 2, inflation decreases. Inflation is decreasing. Yeah, that's why we call it, Vasim, we call it disinflation. Make sense? And deflation is a negative rate of inflation. Okay, so that's what we learned today. This is a good example. A lot of MCQs come from this, guys. I am done for today. Do me a favor, when you come tomorrow, review it before you come tomorrow. Okay? Thank you guys.